going to start actual statistical mechanics, which is in your course. So till now you have learned scattering cross section, mean free time, mean free path, and viscosity. Till now you have learned all those 4 topics. I have seen it here in your Moodle. So we'll start with the next topic in your syllabus, that is electrical conductivity. Actually, the unit's title, if you have seen, it is not statistical mechanics. Yeah, it is statistical mechanics, but the chapter's title is transport phenomenon. The book is B.B. Lau, and the chapter's title is transport phenomenon. So why is it called transport phenomenon? We'll start from that only. So what is a transport phenomenon? I advise you guys to make some notes with me because I am not writing too much on the board. So you can make some notes. You can write down if something I speak and you find it helpful, then you can write it on your own at that time only. So yes, what is a transport phenomenon? It is a study of non-equilibrium condition. Okay, yes. Let me emphasize on this word. Till now, you have studied some statistical mechanics. We did a very small recap on the statistical mechanics, but till now you have done some partition functions and you have found out grand canonical partition function and whatnot. You have done so many things in statistical mechanics. But now, as we move, we are going to learn transport phenomenon. It is a non-equilibrium thermodynamics. Till now we have learned everything in equilibrium. Then we used to study ideal gas, we used to study harmonic oscillator maybe. Ideal gas was in your syllabus, so I know that you must have studied it in statistical mechanics. You have tried to understand the ideal gas using the statistical mechanics model. But today in this course, we are going to learn some non-equilibrium phenomena. So what is non-equilibrium? It means a set of particles are being transported from one place to another place, or in macro state, you can't define those state variables accurately. That is what we call non-equilibrium phase. Just like we can say that if you have a box of gas, there is some gas in it. And if you have another box which is empty, completely empty, and you remove this partition, there is a partition, and when you remove this partition, suddenly, just completely you remove this partition suddenly, then what happens is you can't tell what is the pressure of gas inside this whole box. You can't tell it because it does not have a well-defined pressure at each and every point. But what you can do is you can wait for some time so that gas molecules will settle down and will come to a specific value of pressure, and then it will be equilibrium, a macroscopic equilibrium, and then you can say that there is a pressure of gas now. So that's what we used to do till now, that we used to study the equilibrium thermodynamics or equilibrium statistical mechanics. But now we will try to study what happens if we move this barrier, and in the process of transportation, what will happen. In this unit, that is what is going to be our main target is. In the process of transportation, in the process of non-equilibrium conditions, what is going to happen? When a set of particles, generally electrons, but they can be any particles, gas particles or anything, liquid particles. In viscosity, you had liquid particles or atoms or molecules. So they generally get transported from one place to another place. And in that transportation process, there are few things that you care about. There are few physical properties. One is viscosity, one is this electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity, and there are so many things. So in this whole unit, we are going to study when something is being transported, those situations are not in equilibrium situations. So this is what we are going to study in this chapter. So what are transport phenomena? Something is being transported from one place to other. Some particles, okay, I should not say something. Some particles are being transported from one place to other place, and it is a non-equilibrium phenomenon. So this is a transport phenomenon. And why should we study it? As I told you that I'll be interested in answering why should we study it. So these transport phenomena are actually the laboratory for statistical mechanics. The question that I did last time, I told that it was a toy problem. You had 3 particles and 4 energy levels, and you need to find out macro state and micro state. That is a toy problem. You don't see those kind of situations in real life. But in real life, what do you see? You see that if you have a wire and you provide some voltage around this wire, so you generate some electric field in this wire, and that's why the electrons will start moving, and you will find that this wire has some conductivity or some resistivity. Okay, So those properties we do find in our real life. So what is the connect? Can we measure? Can we theoretically derive the expression of resistivity or conductivity using statistical mechanics? Can we derive the expression for heat transportation or thermal conductivity using statistical mechanics? Those will be our target points. So it is a laboratory of statistical mechanics. Till now you studied some equilibrium statistical mechanics. Now we are going to theoretically check, apply those ideas and check whether our intuitions or whether our learning of the subject was right or not. So why study it? It is a laboratory for statistical mechanics. Again, I want to repeat this statement that we want to find out some real physical properties of some systems. And we are going to apply statistical mechanics to find out those properties and see if our statistical mechanics works there or not. Sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work, but we'll try to see whether it works. In our syllabus, we have all those things where it will work, definitely. That's why it is in the syllabus. But sometimes it won't work, sometimes it will work. So we'll try to see those things. Okay, so it is a laboratory for statistical mechanics. That's why we should study it. And the first topic, first experiment that we are going to do in this course is about electrical conductivity. Why do metals conduct? That is the first question. Why should they conduct? Why should they conduct? So there is a beautiful process of conduction. You have that in a metal. It is simple 12th standard knowledge. In a metal, you have so many kernels, which are nothing but positive ions sitting at some specific lattice points. They are called kernels. And the free electrons. What is a kernel actually? I hope you know. There is a nucleus and there are some orbits of electrons. I should not draw it this way, but it is okay until we are studying quantum mechanics. So until we are studying quantum mechanics, these kind of orbits are okay. So I am drawing these kind of orbits. This is a nucleus. This guy is a nucleus. And there are some unpaired electrons in the outer shell. And what we are doing is, we are considering these electrons as a free electrons. And all the inner part, we call it as a kernel. So we removed 1 or 2 electrons from the outer orbit. So all the inner part has become positively charged. So that is a kernel. They are sitting at different lattice points. And all these electrons, they go around freely inside the metal. So this is the actual structure of metal. Those electrons collide with these kernels. And that's why the resistance appears in this metal. Okay, so those electrons collide in this with these kernels, and that's why if we provide, now what happens is these electrons move randomly. This guy's electrons, and they move randomly. They will collide here and here and here and here. They will move randomly. Okay, they will completely have its random motion, and when we provide any external field like electric field, it will start to drift off. If we have applied electric field in this direction, the electrons drift will be in this direction. It will start to drift, means if it had to go here, it won't go there. I should make a bigger figure. Sorry. So if this is an electron, and if it had to go here and here and here and here, there are after 4 collisions it should be here. But if you apply an electric field which is in this direction, then what happens is electron does not go till that point, but it stays here, and then it stays here, and then it stays here, because the force on electron is in the opposite direction than that of the field, and then electron comes here. It is a little bit drifted away from its actual position when the field was not applied. So that's what we call the drift of an electron. This is what we call the drift of an electron. Because of electric field, it drifts. And so many electrons together, if they drift by a very small amount, it produces a very good current in in the metals. So that's what we are going to study, this conduction process using the concepts of Boltzmann statistics, or Boltzmann statistics, that Boltzmann's kinetic theory of gases. We are going to consider this electron, free electrons, equivalent to a gas inside a container. We are going to consider these free electrons as a gas inside a container, and these kernels are other atoms where electrons will collide and eventually will when it will collide with those kernels, it will reduce its velocity a little bit, and then overall there will be some conduction because of this drift. So all these things you have learned in your 12th standard. I just wanted to repeat, just to make sure that we are on the same page. Okay. And now, if you guys have any doubt till this point, you can tell me. Otherwise, we'll be moving with our actual statistical mechanics. So today's topic is very light, so I don't think you will be staying here for more than 30 minutes. So if you have any doubts, we'll go very slowly. If you have any doubts, you can ask. Okay. There are no doubts, so we are moving ahead. Ohm's law. What do we do if this is a wire? If this guy is a wire of a metal, then what happens is if you apply some electric field in this wire, then you see if this electric field is sufficiently small and if it is uniform over all the wire, then you will see that the current density produced in this wire is proportional to the electric field. For small uniform electric field, the current density that is produced, what is current density? You know, it is current per unit area. So the current density produced in this wire is proportional to the electric field for any metal whatsoever, or any substance whatsoever. It is proportional to this electric field. But what happens is, for some substance like copper, you find them very good conductive. You apply the same cell of 12-volt battery across a copper wire, then you will find that it lights up the bulb very fast. But if you put this pen, which is made up of plastic, between these two set of battery, between these two poles of battery, it won't conduct. So what happens is, this phenomena of current density proportional to electric field is valid for all the substances, but there is something which is dependent on substances, and that is the proportionality constant. The proportionality constant is, we will call it sigma EL of electric field. I won't write vectors from now on because we are not interested in the directions most of the times. I won't write vectors. So this proportionality constant, we call it electrical conductivity. And it depends on the material. So it has the answer that why copper is conductive and why the ball pen that I am using is not conducting. So it is this electrical conductivity, which depends on the material, is the reason why something is conductive or something is not. Its value fluctuates for different materials. And this boxed law, this boxed guy, is called Ohm's law. Okay, I know that you guys have studied V equal to IR, but I know too that you must have studied this law too, and this is more accurate form of Ohm's law because it has the ability to tell you what happens at a higher temperature. We will see it as the lecture continues. Okay, so this is the Ohm's law, and this is called the electrical conductivity of the system, of the material or of the system. Since we are talking about any system, it is electrical conductivity of that particular system. So we are moving ahead. This is called Ohm's law, and what is my lecture is going to be, how is it going to look like? I'm going to try to derive some expression for J. In that expression, if I have J equal to something times E, I'll tell that something as the electrical conductivity as the proportionality constant, and then I'll try to see whether it matches with our actual quantum mechanical electrical conductivity or not. Okay, so this is what my approach is going to be. I'll first try to find the current density in any metal or any material. That is what my approach is going to be. For that, let's derive the expression of electrical conductivity using statistical considerations. Now, what is a statistical consideration? You have a wire. In that wire, let us define two things. There is one thing called N. And what is N? It is mean number of charged particles. Per unit volume. So it is mean number density. It is nothing but mean number density. Why I am using the word mean number density? Can anybody of you throw some light on this word mean. Why I'm using this word mean? Mean number of charged particles. Why can't I use the number of charged particles per unit volume? Why I'm using this word mean? Okay, your response will decide that how should I proceed in this. So, yes, be interactive. Yeah. I will find it very good if you will answer something, anything. Huh? Huh? But yes, I think everybody at least understands Gujarati if they can't speak. So what he is telling, okay, I am comfortable with Hindi, English, Gujarati. So you can answer in any language you want. Okay, it is not necessary, but I have to speak English. So yes, so his answer is that current density will not be uniform in all the regions. That's what your answer is, right? It won't be uniform, so that's why we have to take mean. But I'm not talking about current density here. I'm talking about the charged particles here. So yes, anybody else? So that is also the same answer for charged particles, because if you take any small volume in this wire, if there is a wire, if you take any volume here, any volume, and if you take the same amount of volume here, then you won't find number of particles exactly same in both the volumes, because electrons are moving. So you won't find exactly same number of particles at both the places because they are moving. So you won't find exactly, I'm using the word exactly same. They are nearly same, but you won't find them exactly same. That's what, there are some number of electrons here, some number of electrons there, and some number of electrons here per unit volume. That's why generally we speak about the mean number of charged particles per unit volume. So that is what mean number density means, that because of transport phenomena, if it were equilibrium, then everything in every per unit volume, the number of particles would have been same. Then too, it was if for larger number of particles we have to take mean. But if it were equilibrium, then we could say, if we want to, that number of charged particles are not, or number density is constant. But in transport phenomenon, we can't say that. So that is the first thing. I hope you guys understand. And let us define something else, which is V, average V. What does it mean, average V? It means that mean, I'm looking for the words as I want to write it properly. Mean velocity in the field direction. So if this is a wire, electrons will be moving in X direction and Y direction and along the Z direction, along the wire. So in X direction and Y direction, electrons are moving, but we are not interested in those motions. Why? Because that motion in this plane, if electron is going from here, here, it won't constitute in current in this direction. So we are interested in those motions which are along the field direction, because they will constitute current somehow. So this V, this is the symbol that we are going to use. These two are the symbols that we are going to use, and this V is the mean velocity in the field direction. And if there is a mean velocity in the field direction, what is a velocity? Can anybody who has studied 11th standard tell me that what is a velocity means?
Distance upon time.
Yes, distance upon time. Very good answer. So I'm writing it in the words distance per unit time. Okay. So mean distance, does it mean that this is a mean distance moved by a particle in field direction per unit time? Yes, I can say that, right? That it is nothing but the distance per unit time. So in 1 second, this is the distance that particle travels. This is the simple thing. Okay. So from this, we can say that therefore mean number of particles crossing unit area perpendicular to the field per unit time is equal to n times v. Did anybody of you know how did this thing happen? Like n is number density, mean number density, and this is the mean velocity along the direction of field. And I want to just explain this. If somebody of you knows too, then I want to explain it because it is my fun. So how is that? How is that n times v? So we will try to do that. There is a wire, and suppose this area of cross section is A. This is a wire, and suppose this is the area of cross section, which is A. Now, what is my purpose is I want to take one area of cross section here. I will take one area of cross section here. This is the area of cross section that I took. And from that, if I take all the particles sitting on other area of cross section, which is exactly away by distance v, then all the particles sitting on this area of cross section will move in this direction in 1 second and just cross or just sit on this area of cross section. Is it correct? As this is the distance traveled, mean distance traveled in 1 second. So all the particles who are sitting on this cross section will cross this cross section in 1 second. All the particles, because all of them has, and we have the field in this direction. We have the field in this direction. Electrons move opposite of the field, so we are talking about ions. So we are talking about ions. Because I just want to take electric field and the motion in same direction, you can talk about electrons the same way. But we are talking about ions. All the ions sitting on that cross section will try to move distance v in 1 second, and that's why they all will cross this another cross section which is sitting at this point in v. I hope this is clear. And that's why all the other electrons which are sitting inside this region, all the other electrons or other ions, all the other ions which are sitting inside this region will also cross that barrier. So all the particles in this volume, and how much is this volume? All the particles in A times V volume will cross the cross section perpendicular to the field of this is the cross section. ये वाला cross section जो है वो field की direction से perpendicular है, because field is in this direction, the cross section is in this direction. So all the particles in A into V volume will cross this cross section. That's why they will constitute in some current, because all are charged particles and they are moving. So all moving charge constitutes current. So all the charged particles which are moving, they will constitute some current. So all the particles in A times V area will cross this cross section. And I insist that if you have any doubt in understanding this, you must ask questions, because in next section in thermal conductivity, I'm just directly going to use this concept. I'm not going to tell all these things again. So if you have any doubts, you can ask immediately, because there will be in this section there will be so many theories which are directly connected to the other theories. So don't hesitate. All the particles in this volume will cross this cross-sectional area A1. Let me tell this cross-sectional area A1 will cross A1 per unit time. In 1 second, they all will cross, and that's why they all will constitute some current. And how many particles are there in this much volume? In unit volume, there are n particles. This much volume, there are n times A times V particles. Therefore, number of particles crossing the unit area per unit time, if they are crossing a cross-sectional area, unit cross-sectional area per unit time, if they are crossing A area, how many number of particles are there? N times A times V particles. They are crossing this A area. So how many number of particles are crossing unit cross-sectional area? They are crossing N times V. Number of particles are crossing unit cross-sectional area per unit time, because this is the number for A area. So how much is per unit area, you can find out. Okay, so number of particles crossing unit cross sectional area per unit time is n times V, and that's why I wrote this thing. Mean number of particles crossing unit area per unit time is n times V, and this is its explanation. If anybody of you, even single one, cannot understand, we are not moving ahead. We are not moving forward. Please bring your doubts, and if you all understood, I think we can move ahead. Okay, so we can move ahead. Okay, so let's just try to find the drift velocity. So what is the current density? It is current per unit area. And what is the current? It is charged per unit time. So how much charge has passed per unit time? It is NQV, because N into V, number of particles passed through that cross section. So per unit area, how much number of particles passed? It is N times V, and we are multiplying it with charge of each particle. Q is charge of each particle. So we are multiplying it with the charge of each particle. That's why it is N times Q times V, and that is our current density. So just it happens that we find this V, which we also call drift velocity, because it is drifting along the, it is the velocity along the electric field. So it is nothing but the drift velocity. If we find this expression for V, then we can find the current density and we can find the electrical conductivity probably. We need to find this expression for V in terms of electric field. This is charge of each particle. This is the current per unit time. This is NQ times V. So how to find V? How to find V? It is really very simple. V is acceleration into tau. This is mean velocity along the field. So that's why this is mean collision time. Or you can say relaxation time. And you have studied this thing as a very first topic in this chapter, in this unit. So relaxation time. This is relaxation time, and this is acceleration produced due to electric field. Acceleration produced in particle due to electric field. So this is the relation. Average velocity is nothing but A times average collision time. So this is 11-12 standard relation, and then from this we can say that if there is a particle which is sitting here, if there is a particle which is sitting here, let's say this particle which has charge Q and mass M, and if you provide some electric field in this direction, then what happens is, if you provide some electric field, then there is a force on it, Q times E, in this direction, and due to that there is some acceleration in this direction. Therefore, applying Newton's laws of motion, ma equal to QE, and therefore A equals to QE over M. And if we are putting that A in the equation, then V equals to QE over M into tau. This is the expression for drift velocity. All these things you have studied in your 12th standard. Expression for drift velocity. I'm just taking statistical consideration. Where did I use statistical mechanics? Here I used statistical mechanics. We did not talk about all the particles going in X and Y directions, because their resultant velocity in X and Y directions, all the particles resultant velocity in X and Y directions will be zero because of the random nature. If some particle is going there, there is definitely going to be some particle which is going in other direction, exactly opposite to that particle with equal velocity, because there are so many particles, somewhere around 10 raised to 28 or 10 raised to 29 per unit volume, per meter cube. That's why we don't have to consider each current produced due to each and every charge in X and Y direction. Overall, they all will make zero current in X and Y direction. All we are worried about is current in Z direction, current along the wire. That's where we use statistical mechanics. That's what all statistical mechanics was. And from there we have moved ahead, and we used some mathematics and Newton's laws again. So the base of statistical mechanics, you know where I used the statistical mechanics. And now we found this current density, and that's why if we are putting, I should name these equations. This is equation number 1, and this guy should be equation number 2. From 1 and 2, we are using J equal to NQ square tau upon M into E. this is nothing but a look alike of J equal to sigma E. Why I'm using sigma EL? Because the sigma only was used as a scattering cross section in your syllabus. So I'm using a different symbol here. That's why current this sigma EL is nothing but NQ square tau upon M. This is electrical conductivity, where this is mean collision time or relaxation time. This mass of any particle that we are talking about, NQ square, this charge of any particle. This is number density, mean number density of those particles. So this is our expression for electrical conductivity. So I'm just writing it again here, as I have made the slide. Q square tau upon M. It is simple. It is just really simple question. If I won't ask you, that's why in exam I'll try to ask you some problems. So now, if I ask in from this concept, yes, any doubts?
Are you considering unit area
For what?
for the expression of J?
For the expression of J, yes, I'm considering unit area. I consider unit area from here only. This N into V is the number of particles per unit cross-sectional area. So N into V was number of particles crossing that unit area only, and that's why we are multiplying it with Q. So from here only we are considering unit area. So if we put the expression on of drift velocity in it, it will be for unit area only.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for asking doubts. Actually, I really appreciate doubts, because that's what makes me happy, as you are listening to something at least. Yes. So this is electrical conductivity. This is a wonderful expression of electrical conductivity, and it is it. Okay, I am not moving forward. This is it. This is the expression of electric. Have you seen this kind of expression somewhere else? You guys?
Yes.
Yes. Where?
Yeah. So this if you invert that, you get resistivity, right? Rho.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So from that, R is equals to rho L upon A. This is basically inverse of
Resistivity.
inverse of conductivity. Yeah, resistivity.
Yes. But have you seen the formula for resistivity somewhere in your BSc curriculum? I am asking that.
Yeah,
Have
I
you
have
seen some
seen it
derivation?
somewhere. I have seen it somewhere.
Yes, all of you must have seen it somewhere, because when I was a student, it used to be a very important question for the point of view of exam in solid state physics. It was about Fermi surface, and how if you put some electric field in the metal, the Fermi surface moves a little bit. I still remember the photograph. It was like this. You you draw a sphere here, and then you provide some electric field, and then you draw something dotted in this direction. So this was how the photograph looked like for that question, and it used to be a very important question for the examination point of view. So that's where you derived this formula. This is the wonderful thing. There, in that derivation in solid state physics in 5th semester, you derived this formula using quantum mechanical considerations. You use the Fermi surface, and you use the Fermi surface, and you did so many things. So from quantum mechanical considerations, the same formula looked like this: N E square tau, from in place of tau there was something else, by M star. What is M star? M star is nothing but effective mass. This formula looked like this. I'm not going to derive it completely from that theory, but you can see that derivation, and I know that you must have done that derivation in your 5th semester solid state physics. So that derivation was there, and it gave exactly same result from quantum mechanical considerations. That electrons, here what we did, we treated all the electrons same. We treated all the electrons, that all the free electrons are going to contribute in current, and all the electrons are same, they will contribute in current. But in quantum mechanics, all electrons are not same. They follow some kind of energy distribution that is called Fermi-Dirac energy distribution, and that's why only some of the electrons who are near to this Fermi surface will take part in conduction, electrical conduction. So all these electrons who are sitting in this sphere have not moved at all. All the electrons who were sitting in this white portion, white portion have moved to this new portion. So all the electrons who are sitting near the Fermi surface are only taking part in the conduction process. So from quantum mechanical considerations, all the electrons who are sitting near the Fermi surface are taking electrons sitting near the Fermi surface take part in conduction. Not all the electrons, just all the electrons sitting near the Fermi surface. That is very small number. In our statistical mechanical consideration, we use so many electrons, but here only those electrons who are sitting near the Fermi surface take part in conduction. Then in quantum mechanical if you follow this quantum mechanical consideration, then all the electrons who are sitting near the Fermi surface has kinetic energy 1/2 mv square is equal to their Fermi energy. You guys know what is Fermi energy, or it is new word for you guys? Oh, I see that silence. So what happens is when you have a solid and you bring it to what is Fermi energy, I'm just telling you the definition because it is a topic of solid state physics, but it comes in every branch of physics. So just I'm telling you the definition. There are actually 2 or 3 definitions of Fermi surfaces. First definition I'm telling that in solid, in any solid at 0 Kelvin temperature, the maximum energy any electron can have is equal to the Fermi energy. The maximum energy any electron can have is equal to the Fermi energy. Maximum energy any electron can have is equal to Fermi energy. That is the first definition of Fermi energy. So if you draw the band diagram, then all the energy levels till the Fermi energy are full. This energy level is Fermi energy level. So all the energy levels till this level are full. There are no electrons over to that energy level. But what happens if as you increase the temperature, there are some electrons who appears here. There are some electrons who appears here. As you increase the temperature, because of thermal excitations, electrons start appearing above the Fermi surfaces also. So there are some electrons below the Fermi surface, some very few above the Fermi surface as you increase the temperature, but they still exist. So this is the concept of Fermi energy. At 0 Kelvin temperature, any electron can have, that is the maximum energy any electron can have. This is the concept of Fermi energy. This is one way of defining it. There are another ways that the energy level whose probability of occupancy is exactly equal to half. This is one way of defining it. Now I should go there. Actually, I will try to give you a set of not a set of chapter, a set of pages, 2 or 3 pages from the book by Arthur Baser. It is very wonderfully explained there. It is the part of your solid state syllabus, but I think I should speak about this. You have studied this in your statistical mechanics also in previous semester. So the probability of occupancy is equal to half, exactly equal to half for Fermi energy level. There is also another way of defining it, that the energy level whose probability of occupancy for electron is always half is called Fermi energy level. Okay, so this is the I can tell you these things, but after the lecture, not right now. After the lecture is over, if some of you guys want to stay, you can stay and we will talk about this Fermi energy. No, not right now. Right now I'll try to finish this thing. So only the electrons who have energy equal to Fermi energy on the surface of Fermi sphere will take part in the conduction, and that's why its velocity will be 2EF by m root, and that's why its conductivity will be nq square by m, and that will be tau, and tau is relaxation time, and relaxation time is mean free path upon Fermi velocity. This is mean free path, and you have studied this mean free path at the beginning of this unit. So this is the expression for solids, for electrons in solids. Electrons in solids. This is the expression for electrical conductivity for electrons in solids. Something has changed. The formula for tau was put up here. That's what the thing was changed. Otherwise, everything was same. So this is using quantum mechanical consideration. This is tau f. The tau is not simple relaxation time. It is relaxation time for electrons sitting on the Fermi surface. So this is what it looks like for using quantum mechanical considerations, and this is more accurate result. From in place of m also we are using effective mass m star, which is that it is not just the mass of electrons, because electron is also moving in a periodic potential due to the ions. That's why its mass will also change. This is using quantum mechanical considerations. You found out this formula in your 5th semester. I found out this formula in this semester using statistical mechanics, and both formulas look almost the same. So that's why it's time for some physics to see what happens. So sigma equal to n q square tau over m. It's time for some physics. Mathematics is over. Now we will try to study just 5 more minutes physics. So all this mathematics is over. This is expression for conductivity, electrical conductivity. Now what happens at high temperature? In this wire, you have seen that R equal to R naught plus alpha delta T. This formula you have seen. That means as temperature increases, the resistance also increases. Means conductivity has to decrease as temperature increases. This should happen. This should happen. As we, from our previous knowledge, this should happen. And using statistical mechanics, we derived some formula, and this formula too, it should happen. How is it happening? Let me explain. This is mean free time. Mean free time means the free time electron has between two collisions. The free time that it is not going to collide with anybody between two collisions, the electron has some free time. Between two collisions, different electrons has different free times. That's why we are talking about mean free time between all the electrons. This is mean free time, and if you increase the temperature, electrons kinetic energy will increase. As temperature will increase, electrons kinetic energy will increase, because we have believed that electrons follow this Maxwell-Boltzmann distribution as the gas used to follow, that energy of any electron, the kinetic energy of any electron is equal to 3/2 kBT. This is our assumption in the beginning, that it behaves as a gas. That was our assumption. So that's why we use the concept of random motion and everything. So kinetic energy of electron is 3/2 kBT, and that's why as temperature increases, kinetic energy of any electron will increase, and if its kinetic energy will increase, it will collide more frequently. And if it collides more frequently, then tau decreases. That's why conductivity decreases, and that's what we also imagined, that this should happen using this formula, and now using this formula also this thing happens. Because electrons kinetic energy will increase, it will collide more frequently, and this tau and this sigma, that's why sigma also decreases. So what happens at high temperature? Sigma decreases. It should decrease. That is our first win, that we use some statistical mechanics. That is our second win actually. We came to the formula using statistical mechanics, and we matched the formula with actual quantum mechanical calculations. Then we found out that both of them are coherent. Now what happens at high temperature? We tried to figure out what happens at high temperature, and we found out that yes, it is also correct. It should happen, and it is happening. Okay, now there is another thing called example. So this guy, Paul Drudd, his name is Paul Drudd. So he used this idea of Boltzmann statistics to electrons in metal. This was the guy who used the idea of Boltzmann statistics to electrons in the metal. We call this Drudd model. We call this model Drudd model, that if you want to study the electrical conductivity in metal, you use Drudd model. I don't know if you guys have studied this Drudd model or not, but hopefully you will study it in MSc if you not have studied it till now, but I think you must have studied this. The model that we talked about is the Drudd model. It is nothing new, but the model that we talked about with very few changes is the Drudd model. Okay, so this guy Paul Drudd used the idea of Boltzmann statistics to electron in the metal, and that was the first revolution that he brought to the society. Because if he used the idea of statistical mechanics in solid state physics, then we came to a whole new branch of using disciplinary sciences. It was not the first time that he did, but it was the first time of using statistical mechanics into solid state physics. It was the first time, and Drude explained the conductivity really well using the same model that we now derived. So it is called Drude model in statistical mechanics. So if you guys study sometimes in your life Drude model, then don't be scared. It is the same thing that we just talked about. It's the Drude model. This guy Paul Drude, and it is very funny thing. What happened to him was uh, very sad. What happened to the Paul Drude was very sad, but what happened to Boltzmann was also very sad. And what happened to one student of Boltzmann, whose name is Ehrenfest? I know that you have studied the Ehrenfest theorem in quantum mechanics. So Boltzmann's student was Ehrenfest, Boltzmann, and Paul Drude. All three were very good statistical physicists, and all three committed suicide. So it is there is some joke. It is very sad thing that happened to them. It is also a mystery till now, but there is a joke going on that don't study statistical mechanics because you might end up like these guys. So we don't believe in it because I am teaching. So the first one who is going to have that probably yes. So don't believe that joke. Just laugh on it. These three guys gave very good contributions in statistical mechanics: Paul Drude, Boltzmann, and the Ehrenfest. But some unfortunate thing happened. I don't know why. Yes. So this example, based on the Drude theory, I want you to, if for copper, I have given you these three values: this Fermi energy, the number density, and the electrical conductivity, and I want to find its mean free path. What I want to know is not that you find this correct answer, but in general, in metal, the mean free path of electrons as measured experimentally is of the order of nanometer. Okay, is using the proper quantum mechanical calculations, the mean free path has to be of the order of nanometer. I want to just know that do you get the path in the order of nanometer or not, using our theory, which has so many assumptions that electrons net velocity in xy plane is 0. That is the first assumption. Then there was some other assumption that average v equal to average. This is also an assumption. Average v equal to a acceleration times average mean collision time. This is also kind of assumption. So there are 2 or 3 assumptions that we are using. We are using everywhere the mean values. Still, can we find the electrical conductivity? We have electrical conductivity. Can we find the mean free path in the order of nanometer? If we can find, then we have won. It is a win. It is a clear win of statistical mechanics, because we are anyways not interested in the perfect answers. We are interested what we can do using the results we already have. Can you please calculate it fast? I want the answer. Everybody. I'm giving you the formula now. This is the formula we just discussed. I think it comes around somewhere around 37 nanometer. I did it in the morning, but you try to do it. I want the answer. Whose mass will you take here? I want to just, if somebody can answer, whose mass will you take here? If you know these things, then only you can answer this question. Whose mass are you going to take?
Electron.
Electron, yes. Thank you. Sometimes if you don't answer, I also feel sympathy to Paul Drude sometimes. So please answer fast. Maybe a student didn't answer what is this M. That's why. Does anybody of you has calculator in hand? From next lecture, try to have calculator nearby. How much is it? Okay, you do it on your own. Just find out. It is your home task. I'll ask you, anybody of you, in next class. You try to do it this, and I'll be sending you a tutorial on few conceptual questions. So that's what your job is, to discuss it with your friends and come up with answers in the next class, which we are going to be having tomorrow 2 o'clock in the afternoon. We will be having almost everyday classes on the Sundays, and on the national holidays we will be having break for the next 10 days. For the next 10 days we will be going to have everyday classes. Yes. So you try to do this. I don't know the answer, I won't write it, but some in the morning it came around 37. And the actual value, I want to tell you, actual value is 53 nanometers. Actual value for copper mean free path is 53 nanometers. Actual value. So if it comes even with 20 nanometers, 30 nanometers uncertainty, it is a very good approximation. That's statistical minimum. So in morning it came around 37 when I calculated. So I think it is a clear win.